Hello, welcome to another episode of Fill the Screams podcast. Today we'll be talking about Longlegs. A lot of people are seeing this movie. The opening box office, they grossed $22.6 million, which is a record for the Neon company that made this movie. They're also the company that made that movie, I believe it was called Parasite, which did really well, and it kind of became like a viral type movie. Everyone's like, oh, you gotta see it. And everyone kind of did. But, yeah, the hype around this movie, it's been pretty high. Some people are saying they've been kind of let down by it. I kind of like the negative reviews sometimes. It keeps your expectations in check. I talked about that when I reviewed Maxine. So I was pretty excited to see this. I mean, it has Nick Cage as a bad guy. Like, I gotta check that out. So let's jump right into this. I'm going to be going over spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, jump out now and come back later. The opening scene, I liked quite a bit. I feel like horror movies are doing pretty good with opening scenes lately. This one, there's a little girl, she's walking, you see a car parked on the road or on the driveway, and she's just kind of looking around, and she hears this little sound. And, man, the volume in this movie, like, it goes from quiet to 100 really quick. And, like, some of the jump scares, they can get you that way, especially early on in this film. And when it starts, the little girl's looking around, like, she looks to the left. And when she looks to the left, you hear this little violin sound. It's like, right? And there's, like, nothing there. There's trees. She looks to the right. Right? Nothing there. Trees and stuff. And then she looks in front of her, and, like, there's Nicolas Cage, like, right in front of her, Longlegs himself. And you just see the bottom half of his mouth, but it makes just this big, loud noise, so that when it finally, you see his jaw, you're kind of like, oh, man, like, there he is, like, there's Longlegs, like, we're getting going right now. Now, in the very beginning, they keep Longlegs in the shadows, or they don't quite show his face, and when you just see his jaw and you don't see his entire face, there is like this eerie feeling. You can kind of hear Nick Cage in the voice, because obviously it's him, but he's like, hello, almost birthday girl, like, he's like talking like in this kind of high-pitched voice. You're not really sure how to feel about it, especially if you watch the trailer. Like, they make it seem like Longlegs is just really messed up and really evil. So when you got this little girl, you're kind of like, oh no, like, don't do anything to her, come on. But he's like, oh, I got my long legs on. Like, what happens when I take my long legs off? And then he, like, crouches down, and right when he crouches, the movie, like, you see his face for like half a second. And, like, I feel like that itself, like, you can almost picture something scarier in your mind when he goes down, but you don't quite see it, so you're kind of like, oh, I want to see his face, like, I wonder what he looks like. So that jump scare in the beginning, when they showed his jaw, like, that got me. There was another jump scare later in the film. It's kind of like when she's looking through a book, and it kind of does like a cut to him, like, bending down again, but it does it again with really loud audio, and, like, I about jumped out of my seat. And it was more just because of the loudness of the scene, I think. Like, it wasn't because I was creeped out at that moment. Once we get that little opener, we meet our main character that we're gonna follow around for the rest of the movie. So the main character is Agent Harker. I thought it was Harper at first, and I feel like the whole beginning of the movie, I'm like, what are they saying? It's Harker. She's played by, is it Mika Monroe? Did I pronounce that right? Yeah, I think it's Micah. But it's the same girl from It Follows, so that's pretty cool. And as I'm watching this movie, like, her character is extremely just introverted. She's damaged. She had a rough childhood. It's even kind of funny at some points. Like, so she's with her partner, and like those two, they're kind of talking back and forth. They're looking for this guy, and she has like this hunch that they should go check out this one house, and she goes, we should call backup. And he's like, we're not calling backup on the first day because you have a hunch. So he goes, knocks on the door, and the door opens up, and he's like, hi, I'm Agent so-and-so. We're just here to, and then he gets shot in the face. So I mean, like, right from the get-go, it's like, oh man, like, this movie's like crazy. Like, with the opening scene and then this stuff going on here, a really good beginning. Agent Harker ends up going through the house and she finds the guy. They arrest him. And this is where we kind of stumble upon the Longlegs case. They have Agent Harker do like a bunch of like psychic tests where she has to look at pictures and say the first word that comes to mind, and she was guessing numbers like 1 out of like 155, and she got a lot right. And there's this Agent Carter who's, I think he's her boss, but he's like talking to her and he's telling her like, hey, I think you're psychic, and she's like, no, I'm not, like I just had good luck. And he's like, oh, let's call it good intuition. And I like Agent Carter. He does a typical cop talk, and he feels like the one normal character in this movie. There's a bunch of weird characters in this movie, and Agent Carter kind of stabilizes it a bit. He has a partner. They're like going back and forth with the cop talk. They're making jokes. He says something along the lines of finishing quick, and his partner's like, oh, Captain, I heard that could be a slippery slope. And they both kind of look back at Agent Harker, and she's just like, I don't want to be here. Again, she's introverted. She doesn't like talking a lot. Agent Carter like brings her to his house where he wants her to meet his family. And they're like super happy, social people. His daughter's like, you should come to my birthday party. And Agent Harker just kind of like stares at a wall, and she's like, yeah, I'll come. And I don't know, it made me laugh a little bit. Poor Micah Monroe, like she had her role in It Follows where she had sex for the first time and got screwed over by this big ancient curse with something following her around for the rest of her life. And now she's in this movie where she's like extremely stressed all the time. She does a good job playing the character. Just looking at her face throughout the movie, it's like, man, like someone take this girl to Disney World. Like she deserves some fun in her life. So the case of Longlegs, the different cases that the police department's been getting, and Agent Harker's kind of cracking the code. So Agent Carter's really like, yeah, you keep doing your thing, you tell me what you got, and we'll solve this. And what the different cases are is usually there's a family, and it's like a family of 3. And it's weird because like in the beginning of the movie, Agent Harker, while she's looking at the pictures, like she sees a triangle, and I think she says the number 3. And there's kind of like different interpretations, like the number 3 is like really big in this movie. Like this movie's like full of Easter eggs. Like apparently like you can see like little devils sitting in the corners of the room. Just really kind of cool stuff that they hide in the shadows. But as far as the 3 goes, in most cases there's a mother, father, and a kid. And usually how these cases go, the father goes crazy, kills off the rest of the family, then suicides himself. So there's 3 there in each case. And also, like, the people setting it up, it's supposed to be, there's Longlegs, there's Agent Harker's mom, spoiler, and there's the devil. They're kind of running this whole trifecta. Again, the number 3, that's why the triangle's always there, with 3 sides. I don't know, like, there's just a bunch of, like, different type of code stuff that goes along with this film. So, if you kind of like the true crime vibe of things, there is that aspect in this movie. The atmosphere of this film, the first half, well, I don't know if I should say the first half. They have, like, part 1, part 2, part 3, which is really weird because part 1 seemed like it lasted, like, 10 minutes. Part 2 seemed like it lasted like an hour and 10 minutes, and then part 3 felt like 10 minutes. I feel like it almost would have been better if they just would have said beginning, middle, or body, and end, instead of 1, 2, and 3. But they got fancy with it. They gave it titles. That's fine. They're being artistic. But the good first chunk of the movie, there is like this kind of just very spooky atmosphere for the movie, from when we see Longlegs and it's just his bottom jaw, and then we got Agent Harker and Agent Carter. They're traveling around trying to solve this thing, and then like the sky is always just like dark and gray and looks like it's about to storm. In this movie, like, it's a total mood setter. It's like almost kind of I don't know if I want to call it gothic, but just very dark vibes, or maybe bleak is what I'm looking for. But I thought that was pretty cool, especially in the beginning. And there's a part where like Agent Harker, she's in her house. Someone like pounds on her door. She sees something outside, goes outside, couldn't find anything. Then we see someone walking around in her house, and it was Longlegs. He left her a note. Very uneasy atmosphere, especially early on. Now it kind of shifts gears as the movie gets going. But I mean, I really enjoyed the beginning half. I was like, oh man, like this is good stuff here. Like there's some scariness to it. Even when Agent Harker talks to her mom, like in the beginning of the movie, like at first, like you could just tell they're distant. She's like, "Hi, Mom," and she's like, she says her first name, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm your only daughter." And then like they're both just kind of silent on the phone. It's like, oh, this is where Harker gets her internal personality from, her mom. But then you kind of find out like some stuff has happened, and her mom is kind of like she'll just randomly go like, have you been saying your prayers? And it's not like a sweet motherly way of like, oh, have you been praying? It's more of just like this urgent, like, have you been saying your prayers? And it's like, oh, like, ease up a bit. She lies for a bit, and eventually she tells her by the end. But you kind of notice something's up with the mom. She even visits her. And even when she visits, like, she has a locked door, and you're kind of like, oh, what's that all about? So we've talked about the first half. We need to get to, because eventually the movie does show Longlegs, the full Longlegs, not just his bottom jaw. This was a big deal to some people. I got on social media and there was someone freaking out about, like, I can't believe someone posted what Longlegs looks like on Twitter. Like, they posted his whole face. Like, I can't believe they would do that. And I mean, like, I know the trailer, like, did a really good job of, like, hiding his face and, just giving you different angles to where you never fully see his face. So, like, I was, like, extremely intrigued. Like, man, people are freaking out about this. Like, he's got what's the big deal, But when we finally get the reveal, he almost looks hobo-ish in a way. I kind of thought of him as, like, Beetlejuice's less scary, maybe a little bit more feminine cousin, or just someone extremely rough that you might find in the big city that your parents warn you to stay away from when they tell you not to talk to strangers. Like maybe this is what you're picturing as a little kid, just someone kind of gross looking. And I'm not saying it's a letdown by any means. I mean, Nicolas Cage killed this role. There's a lot of Cageisms while he's doing it. He's like riding in his car and he's like, "Mommy, Daddy." And like just, it's almost like he sings a lot in this film. He goes into the gas station and there's the cashier, and man, the trailer like really hyped up the scene where he takes his hands and put it over his eyes. Like they play like this weird music and it makes you think he's like raging out, like tearing off his face, like "Rah!" But instead he just kind of walks up and he's like, "Cuckoo, cuckoo," which reminds me of like Neon's other film. I don't know if it's cuckoo or cuckoo. I've seen it pronounced both ways. But I just thought it was kind of a coincidence a little bit. Maybe they're advertising for their next film. I don't know. But he's really obsessed with like birthdays because that's his whole agenda. He has this little pattern to where by the birthdays he makes a triangle. And just he has this whole code to it that Agent Harker solves. But it's even kind of funny. Like the gas station girl's like, "Dad, the weird guy's back." And I mean, speaking of funny, like I talked about how the beginning that's like really eerie, and like as this movie goes, it starts going into funny territory, but it's intentional. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There was times I was cracking up. I was cracking up when Nicolas Cage was screaming "Mommy, Daddy" in his car. That's what I came for. I came to see Nicolas Cage be Nicolas Cage. There's a part where a psychiatric ward, the owner, they're talking to him, Harker and Carter. Longlegs clearly wrote down different name. I think he wrote down Harker's name. And Harker's like, were you taking photo ID? And the owner's just like, oh, no, that's a great idea, but we don't. And like just the way he does it, it's funny. Longlegs, he has lots of funny stuff. He's creepy a lot, but then there's times like he just makes you laugh. Another kind of funny part is the police eventually arrest Longlegs, and he has like these suitcases, and he sees all these police cars and police trucks coming, and he just kind of sets them down and slowly raises up his hands. Like, it literally reminded me of a Beetlejuice type moment. I was just waiting for him to wisecrack, but he didn't. But he's on film, and they're interviewing him, and he's talking about Harker, and he starts singing, happy birthday. But he's actually like singing. Like, I started that kind of in a creepy way. He's actually like singing it, and the lady stops it, and she goes, he does this for a while. And she's like, how much more? And she's like, like 24 minutes more. And it's just kind of funny, like picturing Longlegs singing happy birthday for like 30 straight minutes, just to be annoying because it's Longlegs. Another one where he goes full Nicolas Cage is where it finally shows him crouching down to Agent Harker as a young girl, which that's the opening scene that I was talking about earlier. And the mom kind of comes up, and she's like, what are you doing? Why are you talking to my daughter? And instead of like explaining himself, he just starts like full on singing. He's like, let me in, and if you be nice, I'll come in, not once, not twice, but as many times as I like. I don't know. It cracked me up. Now, I will say, this whole time Agent Harker's been like, he has to have an accomplice. And she's like really set on that. For some reason, I thought they were going to pull some type of twist, which they do, but I wasn't expecting the twist. Like, I kind of thought it in the beginning. The mom is like just so weird. I'm like, I think it's almost like a red herring, I think is what they call it, where like they intentionally put stuff out there to mess you up. And that was kind of just what I thought. I'm like, the mom's weird, but I think she just might be weird just to be weird. Where I thought it was kind of going is I thought either there was going to be like a town-wide cult, and like a lot of people were going to be in on it, including like the police department, maybe except Agent Carter. I kind of thought it was going that way, or I thought it was going to be like Longlegs is so strong that like he didn't need an accomplice, and like he proves that to Harker at the end. Boy, was I wrong. It was her mom. And when Longlegs is doing like the interrogation, like Harker goes in there talking to him, and Longlegs just commits suicide by smashing his head into the desk. I think he smashes his head like 3 to 4 times. Part of his nose falls off, and it's like splattering blood everywhere, all over Harker. And when he dies, I was kind of like, oh, what? Like, Nicolas Cage is done? Like, I wanted him to be at the end. Because now I'm like, what do we do now? Agent Carter's even like that. He's like, yeah, so Longlegs is dead. We have no other trails, so this case is over. But then they're like, well, let's go by Mom's house, because he mentioned her. He said, you should go talk to your mom. So Harker and Agent Carter's older partner, I don't know if they're technically partners, they go to Mom's house, and they kind of bring back the scariness with this scene. Like, when the mom comes out with the shotgun, like, Harker's in the house, the partner's in the car just kind of chilling, letting Harker have her moment. And Mom walks around the corner with a shotgun and blows her head off. That was pretty eerie. And there's this whole thing with the dolls. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you just keep seeing these dolls pop up. They got that little ball in their head that Longlegs was making. The mom shoots the doll in the head, which at first I'm like, well, at first I thought it was a little kid, and I'm like, well, why is the mom going to kill this little kid? Like, I knew she was off her rocker, but come on. I mean, I guess she did kill the partner, so it would be on par. But I was like, man, like, there's going to be a big emotional scene. Like, the mom's going to kill this kid, and she's going to kill the mom, and it's going to be a big WTF ending. But instead, like, it kind of pans in, and there's a doll. And, like, Harker and the mom are going back and forth, and the mom says something and like blows the doll's head off, which is, I guess, the magical trance that is making Harker not remember everything from her childhood. Because then we get like a whole flashback of when Longlegs was talking to her in the very beginning, and he sings that little song. I think the mom told him to buzz off at first, but since she wasn't being nice, he tied her up, and he did the doll trick anyways. And yeah, that's why like the mom's like so messed up. And the Harker's soul was going to go to the devil, but instead she made a deal and said, I will take these dolls to other houses if you let my daughter grow up. And that's like a big theme in this movie, growing up. The mom even says it at one point, like, I let you grow up. And when she does it, you think she's just being like a weird, strict mom. But no, like by making the sacrifice and killing other families, like that's what she means. So, we get that whole backstory when she blows off the doll's head. Harker wakes up in Longlegs' lair, which is in the mom's house. Like, what a great twist. A lot of people said they saw it coming. Again, I myself was like, oh, shoot. Like, dang, that's what that room was. I was kind of kicking myself for not seeing it coming, but I was just kind of enjoying the movie as it was going. The very ending scene, she goes to Carter's house, and of course her mom's there. She gave their little daughter the doll, and the doll just has the whole family acting weird. Like, Harker's trying to explain it, and Agent Carter's like, shut up! Freaking out. And you know where it's going, because all these cases ended the same way. The father killing everyone. And so, like, Harker kind of knows, like, what's playing out. And, like, the one part that kind of kills me is, like, Harker's like, no, don't do it. And, like, the way Carter and his wife are talking, like, it's, again, kind of funny. Like, I was laughing at their dialogue because internally they knew. Like, for example, the wife's like, oh, maybe I should go to the kitchen. And then Carter's like, yeah, I'm going to go in the kitchen, too. We're going to cut some cake. Then we see his wife, like, kind of, like, almost internally struggle, like, yeah, cut the cake. But do we have to? And Carter's like, yeah, we have to. And, the dialogue, they're clearly talking about him murdering her, and, like, she knows it's coming, but they're just fulfilling the prophecy. And the wife is like, all right, well, I'm going in the kitchen. I'll be right back. And Carter's like, no, you won't be back, but I will. It's just kind of like, what in the world? But it's at that moment, it's like, Harker, like, take out one of his legs, like, shoot him in the leg, like, get him to where he can't move. You wish she would have done something. But, I mean, I'm guessing if I were in her shoes, maybe I'd be a little froze up too, maybe. I wouldn't quite know what to do. But eventually, like, he kills his wife in the kitchen. He comes out to kill his daughter. She shoots Carter. Her mom freaks out, pulls out a knife at a gunfight, loses that. And then she takes the daughter, and it's just kind of a bleak ending to go with the bleak movie. It's kind of like, dang, that kind of sucks. That girl doesn't have parents now. Like, Harker's got to take care of her, and Harker's not the best speaker. So hopefully the girl's all right. But yeah, that's. I basically summarized the points of the movie that I wanted to. Now, general feelings here. Some things I was kind of hearing before I saw the movie. A lot of people said there was elements of Silence of the Lambs. Other people said there was elements of like Seven in it. I could definitely see the elements of Silence of the Lambs. The elements of Seven. I wouldn't say they're quite as heavy. I don't know, they just felt like different movies to me. And like Seven, I was like constantly guessing, to whereas like this movie, you knew it was Longlegs, and you were kind of guessing the accomplice, but you weren't quite sure. I don't know, like it just felt kind of different to me in a way than Seven. But regardless, if you see elements of Seven in it, that's fine. Like, that's just my opinion. But one thing I wish they would have done is get Nicolas Cage to the end. Get Longlegs to last the entire time. Get him to the last scene. And I know they need to do the whole reveal with the mom. But it's almost just disappointing when Longlegs dies. It's kind of like, oh, like that was the star we came for. The ending isn't bad. It's really not. It's entertaining, and it's not like it's a whole lot of movie left after Longlegs dies. It's just like that little bit ending, part 3, where we see the reveal, we see how it plays out, and we see what happens. So it's not like the ending's a problem, but it's just kind of like, dang, I wish Longlegs would have made it to the ending. My initial thought of how this movie was going to go, I actually thought Longlegs was going to be like this boogeyman type character. And he was going to like go around either like slashing people or just being a complete boogeyman, doing whatever he needs to do. But he was going to be like the main entity taking people out. Which really he's not. Mr. Cobblepot, I think was his actual name, which is like the penguin from Batman. But he was kind of just a cog in the machine, He was working with Satan, the devil, and he was one of the accomplices that was doing it. And when his time's done, his time was done. So I almost kind of wish we got a Nicolas Cage killer movie where he was the main killer. But overall, the movie's pretty good, I would say. It's pretty entertaining. It's a fun time. Well, I don't know, fun. It's bleak. It's entertaining. We'll say that. But overall, I liked it. I enjoyed it. If I was going opening night and I thought it was going to be a Nicolas Cage stardom show, maybe I would be a little disappointing. And I think that's why some people were doing some negative reviews on this. Maybe they thought it was going to be pure Nicolas Cage the entire time, and then when they see him die and not last to the ending, they're disappointed by that, or maybe they didn't like the overarching story of the dolls and the devil stuff. I don't know. I just thought it was a good movie, but if you expected it just to be Nick Cage, you might be disappointed. I think overall I'd give this about a 7 out of 10. It's not the best movie ever, but it's a pretty good one. And if you settle your expectations, again, I think you'll enjoy it. Again, expectations can make or break a film. Kind of same with Maxine. If you're expecting one thing and get another, that can disappoint you. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. But yeah, this has been my review of Longlegs. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you're still listening, thank you so much for still being here. If you want to hear when the next episode comes out, subscribe. Comment, tell me what you think about Longlegs. Did you think it was a good movie? Did it let you down? Or did you enjoy it? And if you could, like this episode, because that definitely helps out the channel. Well, guys, until next time.